Nice. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Did you guys want some cookies? I just, fresh out of the oven, just baked these. This is a pretty nice gingerbread, and I added some Reese's peanut butter chips. I'll put the recipe in the description if you want to try and make some of these. Pretty good. Feel free to grab one. So, today I wanted to share something with you. I normally don't talk about my games that much. Um, to be honest, this is one of the things I need to improve on as a developer and publisher. Is I really don't like talking about myself or my accomplishments. I really don't like attention. I don't like bragging about things. And so I tend to stay pretty quiet about my stuff, but I'll try to get better and just share what I'm working on. So the project that I've prioritized at the moment that I'm working on full time is a mecha game set in a futuristic Wild West environment. The game is titled Desperado Star: Guns of the New Frontier. And hopefully people enjoy this, then I can create more games in the series that I've planned. If it works out, if people enjoy it, the whole point of this game of Guns of the New Frontier, I want it to be a chance to try new and interesting ideas for gameplay. This is a hybrid genre that I call an on-rails RPG, and the game will be created in a way that I can launch it on modern platforms like Steam and Nintendo Switch, but importantly, I want to be able to bring the game to legacy platforms as well. For example, like here on the Game Boy Advanced. But I would also bring Desperado Star to the Nintendo DS, PSP, but also consoles like the Game Gear and the Lynx. And heck, if people are really enjoying the homebrew versions of the game for legacy consoles, I can bring that to the N64, Dreamcast, a bunch of older consoles, basically almost any console. I have development environments set up for almost every single console. I've run test deployment ROMs, so I was able to create just a small homebrew game and run them on a bunch of old platforms, but I'm still learning on those old platforms, and I haven't had the opportunity to work on a full game for legacy platforms. So Guns of the New Frontier would be an opportunity for me to spend time making a game for old legacy consoles that I really enjoy. So I'll tell you a little bit about Desperado Star: Guns of the New Frontier. The lore of the game is that in the far future, the world returns to the Wild West as dangerous machines called Mavericks hunt down humanity. To protect themselves and fight the Mavericks and travel safely, mankind created powerful and mechanized battle suits called Desperados. Large cities have been destroyed, leaving only small towns as the last pockets of civilization and humanity. In the story, you play as a man following rumors, searching for a legendary old desperado that belonged to his grandfather. At the start of the story, a gang of outlaws ambushes the protagonist, steals his desperado, and leaves him stranded in the desert to die. After wandering for a while, the protagonist finds an old, abandoned desperado, which is what mechs are called in this universe. And the protagonist salvages that old desperado, allowing him to escape the desert. And the player pilots this old, abandoned desperado for the rest of the game. The player embarks on a journey of vengeance as he tries to recover the parts of his old desperado stolen by the gang of outlaws. They've dismantled his old desperado and used it for parts because it's quite a high quality desperado, so you have to chase down these outlaws and get parts of your suit back. So why am I working on this game? I usually work on multiple games simultaneously, and that is as you reach certain points in a project, you'll find that certain parts get slower, or they grind you down, or you get stuck and it just becomes difficult to move forward and you feel burned out on a project, or certain parts of it just move really slowly. When that happens, I can switch over to another project, which gives me a chance to take a break from the project that's burning me out. I feel refreshed from working on a project that's just different, and I do that for a couple of weeks, and then after that I feel quite rested and I can go back to the other project and then work on that at full speed again. So this allows me to remain quite productive in environments where otherwise I would normally slow down. And why this one in particular for Guns of the New Frontiers, I really have been wanting to work on games for legacy platforms, but I don't make money off of those. It's even if you try to produce them physically and sell them, it's not a situation where you make a significant amount of revenue, and these sorts of projects take a huge amount of time. So with Guns of the New Frontier, I can make the modern version, and if the modern version sells well, and if there's support through Patreon, that gives me time to work on the homebrew legacy versions of the games that everyone will be able to play for free. If you have flash cartridges, then you can play the game on physical hardware. Otherwise, you can use an emulator. We also have emulation devices as well. So in game development, what takes a lot of time is, especially for these platforms, and what takes a lot of time to learn is animation for sprites, your sprite management, and your collision detection. When I'm working on all of these different platforms, they are different development environments. Working on a game for the Lynx is different than making a Game Boy Advanced or a DS or a PSP game, and learning those things takes a significant amount of time, not just becoming familiar, but becoming very good with those implementation and concept. So by creating an on-rails RPG, which is what I call this game, I can focus on aspects that are very easy and fast for me to learn. I can use just large graphics, background graphics, and text, and that is very easy to manage and learn across different platforms if you don't have a lot of experience working on a platform yet. So this game allows me to focus on aspects that are fast for me to learn and develop. I can create audio and visual assets that can be retargeted to the various platforms. So I make the modern version first, using Unity for modern platforms, and then I can retarget the graphics and the visuals so that they'll run on Game Gear, PSP, DS. I can do a PS Vita version, obviously, because I'm a huge PS Vita fan. So how combat works in this game, it's not menu command driven like a typical JRPG. You know, in a typical JRPG, you go through the menu and attack, magic, special ability items. That's not how it will work in the Desperado Star series. Instead, the player has to navigate the game and collect action programs. And these are actions which allow the player to perform different actions in battle. For example, an action program might be crouch, makes the Desperado crouch, or stand up, or approach, or step forward. So outside of combat, the player has to use something called a procedure disc. Think of it as a blank CD. And the player has to put programs onto that procedure disc. So the player collects actions, and then they permanently burn actions onto the procedure discs. Each disc is one-time use only. You can't reuse, or you can't rewrite a procedure disc. So during combat, you have to see what the enemies are doing, and then you run a procedure disc to make your Desperado mecha do something, to take action. He'll perform a sequence of actions, and of course, something like crouching will increase your accuracy, or stepping forward will increase your melee attack, something like that. So it's important for you to consider which actions will make the next action stronger. Desperados are limited by their available RAM, so your Desperado does actually have RAM, and then of course you can upgrade your RAM. And they are also limited by heat sinks, which of course you can upgrade your RAM and your heat sinks in your Desperados. So if the player just uses all of the biggest and most powerful actions, like say you make a procedure disc and you say, yeah, I'm just going to do all the biggest, best stuff here. Well, every action requires RAM, and eventually you can use up too much RAM. So if you try to use the best moves, then you'll run out of RAM and you'll generate more heat. So if you generate heat, obviously you're going to have malfunctions for your Desperado, and then if your Desperado runs out of RAM, then it can momentarily crash, and then you have to restart the Desperado, and that makes the player vulnerable to enemy attack. You can't take action, you can't protect yourself from enemy attacks. So that's the idea behind my Desperado Star series. I'm a massive fan of mecha, but I want to try something interesting and new with it, and I want your mecha to feel like it's your machine, it belongs to you, and that you have to manage it. And by having elements where you have to program what is basically a mixtape, a mix CD, in order to make your mecha do something, I feel like that's an interesting way, because it feels like you have full control over it in a tactile way, in a way that we would understand in real life. And I love the idea of having to manage RAM, because we understand RAM. That's a concept that we all have to deal with. You know, like you want to run a game on your PC, but you don't have enough RAM. You know, or you're editing a video and then your computer just starts getting stuck because it's using too much RAM. So I think something like that is just, it makes it interesting. It's a different way to consider mechs. And it's so much more different from like a skill point system because it's entirely up to you how you manage the RAM and the heat sinks. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed hearing about my upcoming game. Again, I have a number of games that I'm working on, and sometimes you'll get people to test the game and then they don't really understand it or click with it, and then you just need to sit with that game for a while and you need to consider, all right, what's missing, what needs to be different here for people to really click with the game. Sometimes you just know that the game is missing something, and it takes time for you to find something to really make the game feel complete. I have a couple games that are very far in development, and I just know as a gamer and as a developer, I know they need something else. They're still missing an ingredient. So I work on my other games, and that gives me time to think about, you know, oh, that's what the other game needs. Okay, then you can make revisions and adjustments, and then you can produce a product that people will really enjoy. So yeah, if you're interested in supporting that, if you want to see more of the homebrew stuff, I'll put the link to my Patreon. I'm working on some ice and snow themed level music as royalty free, so if you're working on a game and you need like snow music, ice music, hopefully that'll be up in the next week or two, and that will be available for Patreon supporters to download. And of course I'll put beta ROMs so you can test my homebrew games early. That will be in the Patreon as well. And if you'd like to check out my latest game, that's called CLASHERBALL. It's an action puzzle game. Right now it's for the Nintendo Switch, and I'm preparing to release that on Steam as well. So thanks very much for coming to hang out. I hope you're having a great holiday season. Take care, everyone. Enjoy some cookies, you know, and careful if you're going to use a green mug on green screen there. I'll see you around.